"You're just a filthy mechanic," laughed Mr. Kessler, brushing his Rolex under the fluorescent light. "My engineering graduate son will replace you. You're done here." That was the last thing I heard before the door slammed behind me, and the shop I built from oil-stained dreams turned to silence. 3 years of loyalty, thrown out like grease on the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just tightened my grip on the wrench still in my pocket. Then came the call. Unknown number. Thick Italian accent. "We'd like to speak with your chief engineer. Is this Mara Devlin?" "My name is Mara. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned." What happens when the underdog rewrites the blueprints of power? I built engines by feel before I learned to spell torque. I whispered to machines when people laughed at me. But talent doesn't need permission. And neither does vengeance. The Ferrari squad didn't ask where I went to school. They asked for my designs. My sound. My fire. I sent them my prototype. 2 days later, a jet black courier car showed up at my doorstep. Inside was a contract and a red racing suit with my name stitched in gold thread. Kessler said I was replaceable, but he didn't know I was already building my legacy in silence. I didn't post about it, didn't gloat. I let my silence become a roar. But this wasn't just about engines. This was about pride. And I wasn't done, because the next time Kessler saw my name, it would be engraved on something faster than his ego. Kessler's son, Adam, strutted into the shop like he owned horsepower. Fresh out of college. 0 hands-on hours. But his LinkedIn said automotive innovator, so they handed him my bay. He didn't even know the difference between a torque wrench and a breaker bar. I watched from across the street, sipping gas station coffee. The kind he once banned me from bringing near his showroom aesthetic. Adam stripped the thread on a $10,000 intake manifold within the week. Word spread. Clients started whispering. Porsche. Bentley. Even that guy with the limited edition Veyron. One by one, they disappeared. To where? To me. But not under my name, not yet. I worked out of an old airplane hangar. No signs. No fancy lobby. Just passion and steel. Every repair, every engine I touched, I tuned like a symphony. Customers didn't just leave satisfied. They left breathless. And then came the video. A client posted a reel. My Ferrari was dead. 3 dealerships failed. Then she touched it. Listen to her engine now. The sound tore through the internet. Smooth, guttural, pure perfection. Overnight, the clip hit 6.2 million views. And in the background, my coveralls were visible. Just enough. No name. But my hands. My work. The world started asking, who is she? And Kessler? He started sweating. Because Adam had no answers. No skill. No soul. While I was becoming a ghost story whispered in elite garages. The woman who could bring dead engines to life. The mechanic no dealership could match. The revenge wasn't loud. Not yet. But it was coming, revving in the shadows. Because the race was just beginning. And I had built the fastest machine they'd ever seen. From scratch. The first time Kessler called me, he didn't even say hello. Is it you? His voice cracked like cold metal. I didn't answer. I let the silence throttle him. He tried again. Look, we had our differences, Mara. Maybe we moved too fast replacing you. But listen, maybe there's a way back. A way back? Back to that moldy locker room with no air conditioning? Back to being called sweetheart by clients I knew more than? I almost laughed. But I didn't. I just ended the call and let that sound haunt him. Days later, I got another call. Not from Kessler. From a producer at Velocity Network. We saw the reel. We want you on a docu-series, Queen of Torque. I said no. Not yet. Because this wasn't about fame. This was about precision. Justice. Poetry written in pistons. Instead, I went for something better, subtle sabotage. There was a client, Derek Vaughn. Tech billionaire. Owns 12 rare hypercars. He used to go to Kessler's. Now, he asked me to retrofit his Pagani. I told him, drop it off at your usual spot. I'll send my guy. My guy, Jalen, wore Kessler Auto's old jacket as a joke, walked in like a ghost from the past. They didn't even recognize him until the Pagani roared out of the bay, clean, faster than it ever was. With a small note on the dash, "She fixed what you never could." The client left a 5-star Yelp review. Under Kessler's page, Kessler tried to sue, but there was no logo, no name, no proof, just excellence. And now, the waiting list to work with me? 6 months. Even Ferrari had to wait. The legend was growing, but I wasn't done yet. I still had one more thing to take back. My dignity? Already restored. Now it was time to take his crown. The invitation came in a sleek black envelope, gold lettering, embossed seal, Redline International, Invitational Engineering Duel, $250,000 prize. Winner earns a contract with 5 elite brands. Loser? Public humiliation. Kessler entered Adam. Of course he did. He still believed bloodlines could beat brilliance, that degrees could outdo grit. But when they announced the second name, the crowd shifted. Phones came out. Mara Devlin. I walked onto that stage in the same boots I wore when he fired me. Oil stains still kissed the soles. Adam looked like he'd seen a ghost. Kessler's jaw clenched so hard, I heard it. They didn't know I was coming. Ferrari did. They were sponsoring me. Quietly. Proudly. The rules were simple. Design, build, and optimize a supercar engine within 36 hours. On site. Live. No teams. No help. Just bare hands, raw parts, and engineering under fire. Adam wore gloves. I didn't. He Googled torque specs. I felt them. While he panicked over misaligned cylinders, I carved airflow like a sculptor. My machine didn't just purr, it sang. By hour 35, Adam was crying behind a privacy screen. A piston had shattered. Wrong measurements. Meanwhile, my engine sat flawless, humming with fury. And Kessler? He paced the sidelines like a banker watching Wall Street burn. When the clock hit 0, the judges fired both engines. Adam sputtered, then coughed, then died. Mine? The RPM redlined. Perfect cadence. 0 vibration. The judges didn't even deliberate. They handed me the trophy and 5 handshakes. Flashbulbs exploded. Reporters swarmed. Who is she? What's your story? I turned to Kessler, lifted the trophy, and said calmly, I'm just a mechanic. Remember? The crowd roared. But I wasn't smiling for them. I was smiling because the blueprint for my revenge had just come full circle. And the man who called me filthy was now standing in the shadow of a queen made of steel. Kessler didn't show up to the press conference. But Adam did, red-eyed, trembling, suit wrinkled like a kid sent to the principal's office. He tried to smile when asked, what was it like competing with the Mara Devlin? He muttered something about pressure, then said, she probably had help. I almost pitied him. Almost. But lies were their family legacy, and I was done forgiving dynasties built on delusion. By that night, the headlines were everywhere. From mechanic to mastermind, the rise of Mara Devlin. Queen of torque leaves Ivy League engineers in dust. Kessler Auto's Yelp rating plummeted. Clients canceled. One of their luxury sponsors pulled out publicly. Then came the email. Subject line. I owe you an apology. From Kessler. A paragraph of awkward flattery, coughed out through pride. At the end, he wrote, would you consider coming back as our lead consultant? I replied with one sentence. I don't consult for liars. Then I hit delete. But I wasn't done. Because legacy isn't just won on racetracks. It's built in the communities you rise from. So I opened my own shop. Devlin Dynamics. State of the art. Half my crew? Former dropouts, overlooked kids who reminded me of me. The other half? Women engineers who were tired of being interrupted mid-sentence. We didn't just fix cars. We created art. We trained minds. We rewrote the rules. And we did it under one banner. Earn it. Or burn out trying. Meanwhile, Kessler Auto filed for bankruptcy protection. Word got out. They sold off their flagship store. Adam? moved to Nevada, teaches Intro to Auto Theory online. And Kessler himself? Rumor is he still drives by my shop sometimes. Windows up, head low. Good. Let him hear the engines purring. Let him wonder who tuned them. Let him remember what he lost, not just in staff, but in soul. Because real power isn't passed down. It's forged. One spark at a time. One afternoon, a silver McLaren slid into my lot. Not flashy. Purposeful. Outstepped a man in loafers worth more than my first car. He didn't smile. Didn't blink. I'm with Apex Motorsports, he said. We're building something revolutionary. We want you. I stared at the car, listened to its idle, and nodded once. We shook hands. And just like that, I stepped into a war the public would never see. Formula circuits. Prototype labs. Secret wind tunnels carved into desert rock. And me, the only woman in every room again. But this time, they didn't call me girl. They called me chief. While Kessler was quietly selling off his third boat, I was blueprinting electric hyperdrive systems for a concept car codenamed Phantom. The goal? 0 to 60 in under 1.7 seconds. And silent. Dead silent. No growl. No echo. Just power. I obsessed over it. Day and night. The sound of silence. The shape of speed. When the car launched, Top Gear called it a ghost on wheels. Wired called me Detroit's Da Vinci. But the best headline? Former mechanic builds the future of speed. I framed that one. And just when I thought the story had settled, I got the letter. Typed. Formal. From Kessler's legal team. You are formally invited to a mediation regarding potential brand confusion between Kessler Engineering and Devlin Dynamics. Brand confusion? He thought I was stealing his spotlight. But in truth, I had become the sun. And he was burning in it. Still, I accepted. Not to mediate, but to end it. Face to face. I wore the same jacket I'd worn when I first tuned AV8 in his shop. Same patches. Same oil stains. Kessler didn't speak when I walked in. Didn't blink either. I leaned across the table and said quietly, "You can keep your brand. I already have your legacy." And then I slid a photo across the table. His original shop now under a new sign. Devlin Dynamics, Downtown Division. I had bought it 2 weeks prior. Cash. The old shop still smelled like burnt rubber and cheap ego. But it was mine now. Every corner I'd been mocked in, every tool I was told not to touch, now bore my name, etched into chrome plaques and stainless steel panels. I didn't renovate it. I preserved it, like a fossil of arrogance turned artifact. I held a reopening event. Didn't send invites. Didn't need to. People came. Former clients. Street racers. Engineers. Even that YouTube mechanic who once dismissed me as just another pretty face in coveralls. They all showed up. And they all saw the plaque bolted to the entry wall. To every girl told she wasn't strong enough to hold a wrench, "You were built for this." Reporters took photos. The city posted a feature. The comments? Flooded. That's the same place that fired her, right? Poetic justice on wheels. She didn't burn it down, she bought it out. Kessler didn't come. But I knew he saw it. He could not. 2 days later, a delivery van pulled up to Devlin Dynamics. Inside, a large wooden crate. No note. No name. We pried it open. It was a trophy. The one I won at Redline International. The one that vanished after the award night. At the bottom was a folded receipt from a pawn shop in Nevada. I laughed. Adam had sold it. Probably for rent money. I mounted it on the wall in the front office. Underneath it, I had a new plaque made. Legacy isn't inherited. It's earned. That night, I closed up the shop myself. No assistants. No cameras. Just me. And for the first time in years, I walked the floor in silence. No one yelling. No tools being snatched from my hands. Just the low hum of machines breathing like sleeping giants. I stood there, hands in my pockets, staring at what I built. Not for revenge. Not anymore. But for every future Mara who just needed a chance. Months later, I stood backstage at the Detroit Automotive Summit. The theme, Future Titans of Engineering. And somehow, I was the keynote speaker. Funny. Once, they wouldn't let me park in their lot. Now I was on their stage. I stepped up to the podium. The lights hit. The room hushed. I didn't speak about revenge. I spoke about resurrection. About how some engines stall, but if you understand the system deep enough, you can bring anything back. Even yourself. When I finished, they stood. Applause roared. But I only looked at one seat, row 3, aisle. Empty. Reserved. Kessler. He never showed. But later, in the parking lot, I saw the car. A dusty 2007 Aston Martin. The one he used to brag about. Inside it, a folded envelope. I opened it. Just 3 words in shaky pen. You won. K. I didn't cry. Didn't smile. I just tucked it into my glove box, next to my first spark plug, and drove home. Not fast, but steady. Because I wasn't running anymore. Wasn't proving anything anymore. I had built something no one could take. A future paved in steel and second chances. Every turn of the wrench, every dropped bolt, every insult carved into my back, it all led here. So when they ask what happened to the filthy mechanic Kessler threw out, tell them this. She tuned her pain into performance. And every man who doubted her now drives something she built. They don't need you there anyway, Dad texted, followed by a thumbs-up emoji. I stared at it. It was the day of my son's birthday. I'd spent the last 3 weeks organizing everything, decorations, his favorite carrot cake, and a little scavenger hunt he'd been dreaming of. I didn't ask for much. Just that my parents, his grandparents, show up. But Dad said money's tight. I believed him. I cut the extra pizza, skipped balloons, told my son, it's okay, they love you. They'll come next time. But the next morning, as I scrolled Facebook out of habit, my thumb froze. There they were, my parents, grinning ear to ear in a photo taken yesterday. Mountains of wrapped gifts spilled across the floor. Gold foil balloons read happy birthday. My sister's 2 sons were tearing into toys like Christmas came early. And the caption? Nothing makes us happier than spoiling the grandkids who truly deserve it. My breath caught in my throat. That afternoon, while my son drew dinosaurs alone, he looked up at me with those soft eyes and asked quietly, Mom, don't they need me too? That was the moment something inside me cracked clean down the middle. My name is Kendra Ellison, I'm 34. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. How do you mourn love that's still alive but only one-sided? That night, I poured myself a glass of red wine, pulled up the banking app, and stared at the numbers. Every single mortgage payment I'd been sending for the past 4 years. Every little auto payment, birthday cash, winter coat fund, back-to-school bonus. Gone. With one tap, I started the reversal. By 7 a.m., there was banging on my front door. I opened it and saw my father, face red, hands trembling. Sweetheart, we need to talk. Please. I just smiled. My father didn't knock again. He just stood there, fists clenched at his sides, lips pressed into a line, like holding back a lecture he used to give when I got a B+ instead of an A. I saw what you did, he muttered. I didn't flinch. You mean what I undid? He stepped forward, eyes wild. Kendra, the mortgage, your mother's health, the taxes, we relied on that. I leaned on the doorframe. Calm. Measured. Quietly furious. You relied on me, I said. But apparently, I'm not part of this family, remember? He scoffed. It was one missed birthday. It was his birthday, I snapped. My son, your grandson, who sat in a room full of balloons meant for someone else. Silence. Then the flicker. Not of guilt. Of calculation. Fine, he said. We messed up. But it doesn't justify sabotaging your family. I folded my arms. I didn't sabotage anything. I just stopped pretending I owed you everything. That's when his voice rose. You don't get it. Your sister's husband is between jobs. They needed that celebration. You've always been self-sufficient. Oh, I laughed bitterly. So my punishment for being self-sufficient is to carry everyone else's weight forever? The sun cut across his face. He looked older than I remembered, but not fragile. Entitled. "I'll be back," he muttered. "I won't," I said, and closed the door. Inside, I sank into the couch. My son peeked from behind the hallway wall. "Mom, was that Grandpa?" I nodded. He hesitated. "Is he mad?" I looked him in the eye. "Maybe, but I'm not afraid anymore." That night, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Missed calls. Group chats. Even my mom's passive-aggressive emoji parade. But I stayed silent. Until one call came through. Not from them. From the bank. "Ma'am, we have a situation with your cosigner. There's been an attempt to override the mortgage account you just reversed." I blinked. "The cosigner tried to override it?" I repeated. The banker on the line sounded cautious. "Yes, ma'am. Someone attempted to re-establish the auto payments using your name. But since you locked the account with a new authorization code, we flagged it." I smiled. Not out of joy, but out of bitter recognition. "That someone," I said, "was my father. Would you like to report this as fraudulent activity?" I hesitated. "No," I said finally. "Just make a note and block any further access. Only I authorize changes from now on." When I hung up, the silence stretched. Not empty, powerful. I stood and walked to the mirror. For years, I had rehearsed gratitude in that reflection. Practiced my role. The good daughter. The quiet backbone. The one who gave and gave and gave. But now, I saw a woman who finally stopped asking for a seat at a table where the invitation was forged with guilt. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from my sister. "Can't believe you're ruining everything over one petty birthday. Ezra's tuition is due. What do you expect us to do?" I typed, then deleted. Typed again. Then finally responded. "Ask the people you actually celebrated." And I hit send. The next hour was a blur. My mom left a voicemail sniffling about stress-induced chest pain. My uncle emailed me a lecture about family duty. Even my cousin sent a voice note saying I was hurting everyone. But not one of them said the words, "We're sorry." Not one of them asked about my son. At bedtime, I tucked him in. He looked up, voice small. "Will they come next year?" I held his hand. "No, baby. But maybe that's a good thing. Because from now on, we weren't begging to be loved. We were choosing who got to stay." The next morning, my doorbell rang. I peeked through the curtain. It was my father, still in his suit from the night before, hair disheveled, eyes heavy like he hadn't slept. In his hand, a white bakery box. From the same overpriced cake shop I'd ordered from weeks ago. I opened the door, but didn't move aside. He cleared his throat, then gestured toward the box. "It's chocolate mousse," he said. "His favorite, right?" I didn't answer. He looked past me, like searching for my son. "We messed up," he muttered. "Didn't realize how serious you were." I raised an eyebrow. Serious about what? Respect? Or being treated like I matter? He flinched like I'd slapped him. "I brought the car seat back too," he added quietly. "You left it at the park." That made my chest tighten. Not because of kindness, but because he remembered. The small, overlooked detail no one else would have noticed. Still, I didn't budge. "I'm not here to guilt you," he said, voice cracking. "Just to say, I'm sorry. And your mother is too." I almost believed him. But then his phone buzzed, and when he glanced down, I caught a glimpse of the screen. "She's not folding. Say whatever you have to." My blood turned to ice. I stepped back and said softly, "Tell Mom thanks for the message." He paled. "Wait." But I'd already closed the door. Inside, my son sat quietly at the kitchen table, drawing pictures with a focus that broke my heart. I looked at him, at the innocence they'd taken for granted, and I realized this wasn't about birthdays anymore. This was about never letting anyone teach him that love had to be earned with obedience. Not on my watch. That night, the doorbell rang again. I didn't answer right away. I watched through the peephole. This time it was my sister. She stood there in a velvet coat, her makeup smeared, holding a bottle of champagne like it would solve everything. When I finally opened the door, she didn't smile. Okay, she said flatly. We get it. You're mad. Just, can you stop punishing everyone now? I leaned against the frame. Punishment? You mean pulling back from a family that never shows up unless they need something? Her eyes flicked toward the apartment behind me. Is that the same couch we helped you pick? I smiled. You mean the one I bought with my own money while you were in Greece? She blinked. Then her tone changed like a switch flipped. You really think you're better than us now, huh? She snapped. Because you're the self-made one? I didn't answer. She kept going. Mom and Dad were just trying to keep the family balanced. You always wanted to be the outsider. You isolate yourself, then act surprised when we don't show up. I stayed quiet. She stared, waiting for a reaction. I simply asked, how's the mortgage going? She shifted uncomfortably. You know, I continued, that's $600 a month I covered for nearly a year? It's not my responsibility anymore. Silence. And your promotion party next week? I canceled the venue. It was on my card. Her mouth fell open. You didn't. I did. She stepped back, stunned. I added, for years, I kept paying so you'd love me. But I finally realized I don't need to be loved by people who only notice me when their bills are due. Then I closed the door. And for the first time in years, it felt like a home, not a waiting room for validation. The next day, I expected silence. But instead, my father showed up. Not with anger. Not even with words. He stood there holding a grocery bag, like he was some kind of peacemaker. Inside it, a box of tea, a half-wilted bouquet, and a card that said, still family. I didn't invite him in. He shifted awkwardly on the welcome mat, glancing around like a man unfamiliar with the world outside his own rules. I didn't know what your sister did, he said. She shouldn't have said those things. I said nothing. He went on. Your mom, she's just worried about the family falling apart. I raised an eyebrow.
So am I.
That's why I started building a new one, with people who don't see me as a debit card with legs. He flinched. Then came the real reason. Listen, he muttered. Your sister, she's in trouble. Her husband left. And the mortgage, well, they can't cover it. I almost smiled, but I didn't. Instead, I asked, and now you want what? My forgiveness or my money? He hesitated. Both, maybe. I crossed my arms. You raised me to believe that love was earned by what I gave. I gave money.
Time.
Silence. You said I was strong, but that just meant you felt entitled to take more. He looked away. You never noticed when I cried, or when I succeeded. You only noticed when the check cleared. Still, he said nothing. So I stepped back into the apartment and gently closed the door. The lock clicked. Behind it, I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. Outside, I heard him let out a long breath. Then footsteps retreating. And for once, I didn't chase. Not for approval. Not for closure. Only for peace. That evening, my phone buzzed again. It was my sister. No emojis. No fake cheer. Just, can we talk? I didn't respond. She sent another. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Still, I said nothing. Then came the final message. I'm outside. I peeked through the blinds. There she was, standing on the curb, arms folded, mascara smudged, trying to look brave. I opened the door halfway. She didn't wait for an invite. I didn't know Dad was going to ask you like that, she started. I told him not to. But the baby. I cut her off. You called my son forgettable. Do you remember that? She blinked. And you didn't show up to my graduation, but you flew to Bali the next day. Paid with what? Her silence answered for her. I leaned against the doorframe. You always knew I'd cover the mess. The bills, the tears, the broken promises. I was the safety net. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to make you feel used. I tilted my head. You didn't make me feel that way. You just used me. She started to cry, softly, like someone rehearsed in guilt but unfamiliar with consequences. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. But I wasn't hers to lose anymore. I stepped aside just enough for her to glimpse the living room behind me.
Calm. Clean.
Quiet. A space that finally reflected the life I was building. Without them. Then I said, I hope your daughter never has to prove her worth to be loved. And I closed the door. Not out of spite, but mercy. Because healing sometimes means protecting yourself from the people who claim to love you most. A week later, I received a letter. Not an email. Not a message. A real envelope, with shaky handwriting that I recognized instantly, my father's. Inside was a single sheet. We made mistakes. Too many. I don't know if an apology is enough, but if I don't say it now, I never will. Your mother and I failed you. And we failed him, your son. I won't ask for forgiveness. But I'm proud of the woman you've become. You deserved more. If you ever open the door again, know I'll be waiting on the other side. This time, not to take, but to listen. I read it twice. Then I tucked it into a drawer. Not out of anger, but because healing doesn't always need witnesses. I made tea. My son sat beside me, building Lego towers in the quiet glow of afternoon sun. Mom, he asked, are we okay now? I looked at him, his eyes full of trust, of hope. We're better than okay, I whispered. We're finally home. There was no loud revenge. No fireworks. Just the silence of peace. The power of choosing who gets to sit at your table. And the freedom of knowing you no longer owe anyone the pieces they broke. My family built a home with conditions. I built mine with boundaries. They taught me silence. I turned it into clarity. And when they knocked again, I didn't answer. Not out of pride. But because the door they slammed shut behind me years ago, I no longer needed it open. I built my own. One brick at a time.
For me.
For my son. For the version of me they tried to erase.